Welcome to this daily PBJ devotional. Read 2 Samuel 11 and Ezekiel 18 today. This devotional is about 2 Samuel 11. In the spring, at the time when kings march out to war, David sent out Joab and his servants with the whole army of Israel. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and strolled around on the roof of the palace. And from the roof he saw a woman bathing, a very beautiful woman. So David sent and inquired about the woman, and he was told, "This is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her, and when she came to him, he slept with her. Now she had just purified herself from her uncleanness. Then she returned home, and the woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant." At this, David sent orders to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." So Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked how Joab and the troops were doing with the war. Then he said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king followed him. But Uriah slept at the door of the palace with all his master's servants. He did not go down to his house. And David was told Uriah did not go home. "Haven't you just arrived from a journey?" David asked Uriah. "Why didn't you go home?" Uriah answered, "The ark and Israel and Judah are dwelling in tents, and my master Joab and his soldiers are camped in the open field. How can I go to my house to eat and drink and sleep with my wife? As surely as you live, and as your soul lives, I will not do such a thing." "Stay here one more day," David said to Uriah, "and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next. Then David invited Uriah to eat and drink with him, and he got Uriah drunk. And in the evening, Uriah went out to lie down on his cot with his master's servants, but he did not go home. The next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In the letter he wrote, "Put Uriah at the front of the fiercest battle, then withdraw from him, so that he may be struck down and killed." So Joab besieged the city. He assigned Uriah to a place where he saw the strongest enemy soldiers. And when the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of David's servants fell, and Uriah the Hittite also died. So Joab sent to David a full account of the battle, and instructed the messenger, "When you have finished giving the king all the details of the battle, if the king's anger flares, he may ask you, 'Why did you get so close to the city to fight? Did you not realize they would shoot from atop the wall? Who was the one to strike Abimelech, son of Jerubbesheth? Was it not a woman who dropped an upper millstone on him from the wall, so that he died in Thebez? Why did you get so close to the wall?' If so, then you are to say, 'Uriah the Hittite is dead as well.'" So the messengers set out and reported to David all that Joab had sent him to say. The messenger said to David, "The men overpowered us and came out against us in the field, but we drove them back to the entrance of the gate. Then the archers shot at your servants from the wall, and some of the king's servants were killed, and your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead as well." Then David told the messenger, "Say this to Joab, 'Do not let this matter upset you, for the sword devours one as well as another. Strengthen your attack against the city and demolish it.' Encourage him with these words." When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. And when the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done was evil in the sight of the Lord. This is God's word. The most famous passage in 2 Samuel stands before us today. There are several lessons to be learned from David's sin, but the one I want to focus on today is in verse 2. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Those are the words of the NIV. This answer was the result of David's inquiry about Bathsheba. Verse 2 says, again from the NIV, David sent someone to find out about her. That statement is vague. What exactly did David want to find out? He might have merely been seeking her name. If that's the case, then all he needed to hear was Bathsheba. He might have been seeking her marital status. David already had several wives. You can see that in 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 13. So he might have been willing to add one more if she were single. Given that Bathsheba did not yet have any children, at least that we know about, she was probably still very young. The fact that the man who was sent to find out about her mentioned her father first in his report might be a clue that this is what David was after. The most important bit of information that David got in verse 3 was the news that she was the wife of Uriah the Hittite. That should have ended the conversation right there. She was another man's wife. It was therefore inappropriate for David to have any further contact with her, and he knew it. He also knew that her husband wasn't home. David was usually out with his army and doubtless knew who Uriah was. It was unusual for a Hittite to convert to Judaism and fight in Israel's army. He also was, obviously, a very loyal and righteous man, as we saw in verses 6 through 13. It seems clear that David then knew that her husband was away fighting the Lord's battle, which was David's battle as well. The fact that David, having heard that she was the wife of Uriah the Hittite, immediately sent messengers to get her, according to verse 4, indicates that he saw the opportunity to sin, and he took it. If her husband had been at home with her, or could be home soon from work or whatever, David would never have attempted to get with her. His sin was made possible by 1, not being where he should have been, which is out at war, 2, by being bored, as verse 2 seems to indicate with him wandering around on the roof, and not finding a righteous way to occupy his mind, and then 3, acting on his lust when he saw something he shouldn't have seen, and then 4, ignoring the obvious boundaries like her marriage and her husband's diligence in his duty as a soldier, and then 5, deciding that her husband's absence was an opportunity to sin. It seems clear that David did not intend to sin when he stayed home from fighting. It wasn't his fault that he had insomnia or boredom. It is unfortunate that he didn't respond to his boredom by spending time with one of his own wives, or playing his harp, or going to the tabernacle, it was open 24/7, 365, to read God's Word. The fact that he didn't do any of these things wasn't a sin either. He probably didn't intend to be a peeping Tom when he went out on his roof at night. People used their roofs in this time like we would use a deck or a patio or a front porch today. As I mentioned, it wasn't a sin for David to ask about Bathsheba's status, since she might have been an eligible bachelorette. Temptation does this to us. It takes situations that we innocently wander into and presents us with opportunities we think we might be able to get away with, opportunities to sin, that is. There are a few lessons, then, to learn from this situation. First, be careful when you're not doing what you normally would be doing. Next, be careful about how you handle your boredom. Next, be aware that temptation sneaks up on you when you least expect it. Again, respect the boundaries God has put into place. They exist to warn you that danger lies beyond them. Ultimately, though, none of us can avoid temptation. We carry around depravity in our hearts, and it is easily aroused. Jesus saved us from the consequences we deserve for being sinners and for sinning, but he also commands us and empowers us to live a holy life once we come to him in salvation. We need to pray, "Lead us not into temptation," just as Christ taught us to pray, because we are weak and temptation is powerful. Let David's compromises and sins cause you to turn to Christ for help each day. Learn the lessons that David should have learned in this passage. And I'll see you next time. May God bless you. Hope you have a great day today.